So the question today is how to live with a toxic family member. Let's rephrase the question. Let's make it how to live with a family member who has toxic traits. It's usually not a good idea to label somebody toxic. And what are those toxic traits or behaviors that we're going to talk about? Most toxic behaviors usually come down to disrespect and domination. They treat you like you're less than them. They want to control every decision in the house. You're constantly worried they'll lose their temper. They don't value your pain at all. They dismiss your problems, etc. If these toxic behaviors were coming from a person who was distant, the solution would be easy, that you just stop talking to that person, you just leave. And it's not like they're behaving bad all the time. There are some good moments also, and deep down you love them, you are attached to them. You can't just up and leave, okay, I'm done with you. You have to live with them, you have to engage with them and still find your sanity. So the question is, what should you do? Usually when larger goals are clear, sub goals and actual behaviors and actual decisions become easier. So I'll start with telling you what should be your larger goal with this person. In fact, I should start with what should not be your goal. When somebody is disrespectful or negative with you, and if they are causing this trouble consistently, it's very natural to have a lot of resentment for them. It's natural to develop hateful feelings towards them. And it's even natural to want to have some revenge on them. But think about it, what's the larger goal of such feelings and such behaviors? In the end, you're looking for some justice, you're looking for fairness, and when you fight with them, you want to fix that person. Or at least you want that person to acknowledge their mistakes. So your mind has a tendency to want to fix things and to want justice. And those are the goals that you have to avoid. And the main reason for that is other people are essentially out of your influence. It's pretty much out of your capabilities to actually fix people. You basically can't educate them without their will. And even if they agreed, you have to have the capability to educate them. Also, the world is inherently an unfair place. Seeking justice and fairness is an infinite goal. You'll never be able to fully achieve it. Secondly, how will you make sure that you are actually running for justice? What if you are biased? What you think is fair may actually not be fair. And I'm not saying that these goals must be at zero, of course not. But these goals must be lower in priority. There are some better goals to deal with other people, especially toxic people. So your top goals should be, how do I think or behave in a manner that maximizes my happiness, my bond with this person, and their happiness? These are the three most important goals, and actually in that order. Your own happiness comes at top, then the bond, and then their happiness, at least from your point of view. So we choose principles and behaviors which will contribute to all three of them. And the actual result of your efforts will of course vary from person to person. But these larger goals don't change whether you're dealing with a toxic person or an amazing person. I again said toxic person, but that's just easier for me to say. Whenever I say toxic person, just remember I mean a person with toxic traits. The beauty of these three goals is that they are universally applicable to all human relationships. So your anchors are very well founded. You don't have to keep shifting your strategies. So let's now pursue these three goals in the context of a toxic family member. And we'll talk about it in the reverse order. Let's start with how to maximize their happiness. First, you may ask, why the hell would I care about maximizing the happiness of a person who has made my life a living hell? I'll tell you why. Because it's primarily about you, not them. You must aspire to become a human being who lives on the basis of certain fundamental principles which do not radically change from person to person. And one of the absolute core principles that I keep saying in all my videos is that the highest goal for you and the humanity is to maximize well-being for maximum number of people. And this maximum number of people includes all the people with toxic traits. No matter who you are dealing with, you must be able to hope that this person finds the most well-being that they can given their circumstances. And you have to take your ego out of the equation. It does not matter how that person has dealt with you. It doesn't matter how much you like them or dislike them. This universal principle applies throughout. But again, why? Why should we hope for happiness of somebody who has done terrible things with you? Well, I'm not just talking about superficial happiness here. I'm actually talking about maximizing well-being. And well-being includes happiness plus ethical behavior. So your true hope is not that this person should just be happy all the time. Your true hope is every human on earth must gradually become more and more of an ethical or moral person. So the typical happiness and morality both are actually packaged under well-being. And in a way, nobody can really be happy unless they are also moral and ethical, at least to some degree. So morality and happiness go hand in hand. Then the question becomes, okay, I can wish for their well-being, but what can I actually do here? What can anyone else do about it? We can at least have two starting points. First of all, don't violate the fundamental principles that end up hurting others. Meaning, at least don't do things that can objectively make their life worse. worse. Because like I said, if you actually have some hate for that person, if you have some revenge feelings, you would want to disrespect that person. You want to give them the taste of their medicine. You may even become violent. You may start to seek some pleasure in their pain. You may even end up escalating the fight. And you will do it in the name of, well, they did it first. And this is a terrible vicious cycle, because once you start to justify bad behavior by the fact that they started it, the other person can also start doing the same thing. Then both of you get into this endless abyss of revenge. They make a mistake, you make another one in response to that, and then they make a bigger one in response to your mistake, and so on. And both of you say the same thing: I did this because they did that. Several generations will come and go, and your disputes will not be resolved. Hence, someone has to stop making new mistakes. Someone has to break the vicious cycle. And it has to be you, because you're the one listening to it. You only have control of your life, your behavior, your thinking. Again, it may seem unfair to you, but we are not chasing fairness. We are chasing well-being. So essentially, you can maximize their happiness by not adding more troubles to their life, by not making your own new mistakes. Be on best behavior always. And the second thing that you can do is pass on your wisdom. But in a way, to some degree, it is the goal. Let me explain the difference. Your goal is not to fix them by force. You can't start with an attitude like, okay, I'm gonna set this person straight. But the healthy goal is, how can I influence this person's life in the right direction? So in that sense, you hope to nudge them in the right direction, but you're detached from the outcome. And how do you nudge them? The only sustainable and healthy way is pass on your ideas and your wisdom. You have to keep giving them feedback in a constructive way, and most importantly, you have to keep those communication channels open. Ultimately, good life and good behavior comes down to good ideas. So if that person is toxic, it means they lack good ideas. If you can genuinely share principles with them which can lead to well-being, then there is a true chance that this person actually might get better. Like, you may say 100 things to them, and even if they take 5 of them, you've still done something. And not only you have maximized the happiness of this person from your point of view, you have also contributed to the happiness of people that they interact with, including yourself. Because with their earlier ignorance, they were causing trouble for so many people around them. And now with your new wisdom, they are happier and more ethical. So no matter how toxic your family member seems, don't shut them out. Listen to them, keep talking to them. Nobody knows what idea can sink in and how much change it can bring. Now the second big goal, how to maximize the bond, how to deepen the relationship with that person. Again, you may question this, like, if you dislike this person so much, why would you care about any relationship with them? And here again, I invite you to look at each human as a mix of good and bad. Don't try to do black and white, toxic, non-toxic. Everything is on a spectrum. We all need humans in life, and family members are kind of gifted to you by nature. You were born with that kinship. Making new human bonds is pretty difficult, so why not make the most of what has been given to you? If there is something that can be salvaged in this relationship, why not do that? And now, how to do that? Well, the answer is pretty basic. Follow the core underlying principles of all human relationships. Show a clear intention that I care about you, I do want to be connected with you, respect them unconditionally, give them maximum possible freedom to live their own lives, have some stable, regular interactions with them, make sure to always be honest and transparent. When they talk, try to understand their perspective, even their complaints. Just ask yourself, if you were to develop a new relationship right here, what would your behavior be? What are the basic practices that you'll follow? Just follow them. I think building the relationship would be the easier part. The harder part is to actually want it, to have the clear intention to actually build the bond, because you're so sick of them. So for that, simply remember, having good, loving bonds with people is one of the highest goods of life. Don't give up on people so easily. And I repeat, despite your efforts, doesn't mean the bond will necessarily grow, because they are the 50% of that equation. But you can go to sleep thinking, I have done my best. And now let's come to the third big goal, which is maximize your own happiness. And you can do this in 2 major ways. Take less suffering and increase the joy. So let's start with taking less suffering from that person. I told you initially, right? 2 major toxic behaviors are disrespect and domination. You have to find a way to not let those 2 things affect you. To deal with disrespect, you can first start simply telling them that you don't like this. I feel disrespected. I will not take it. Please talk to me nicely. Please talk to me politely. You have to keep reminding what you're feeling. And if they don't listen, then you manage the distance with them. You reduce your interaction depending on how much they adjust themselves. And dealing with their domination, just remember these 2 simple things. You always have the right to disagree with them. You always have the right to not comply. Basically, you can always say no. Of course, you'll have to accept the consequences of saying no to them. But remember, nobody can push you to do things that you don't want to. to. Nobody can force you to think in their own way. So always be prepared to stand up for yourself. Basically, if you make sure that you hold on to your respect and your freedom, you become immune to their toxicity. And now the second part, how to increase the enjoyment with them. Like I said earlier, each human has some good and bad. The same way, each human has something in common with you and something different from you. And your goal is to focus on that commonality. Your goal is to find pleasure and joy in that. With each person, no matter how toxic they may seem, you will always have some things that you can talk about, some things that you can do together. Maybe you like to watch movies, play games, talk about sports, go on a hike, go for swimming, cook pasta and drink wine, go to nightclubs, go shopping, etc. It's virtually impossible to not find something in common. And once you find that commonality, the goal is to focus on it and maximize your enjoyment in that small bubble. Don't try to think about the differences. Don't keep complaining that, oh, we used to be so much better earlier. Don't live in the past. Don't have high expectations anymore. Just be grateful for what you do have. So let's say earlier that your happiness with them was at 8 and now it has come down to 3. 3 is still something. When you meet that person, focus on that 3, not that the relationship is now -5. At the end of the day, by doing this, you're adding happiness to your life. In a way, you are maximizing enjoyment in each interaction with each human that you meet. Now, some people may have an objection. How can we just focus on these 3 goals, like maximizing their well-being, the relationship bond, and our own well-being? Because they still want to talk about that justice, fairness, giving consequences for bad actions. Again, it's a natural instinct and it's an important one. So I must acknowledge that, of course, there are circumstances when somebody does something extreme, like a crime which hurts others. You have to pursue justice. You have to give consequences to that person. But those are usually exception cases in society. It's a very small percentage. The approach that I've told you is for your day-to-day life. So in your regular family life, when you are dealing with a person who has toxic traits, as you deal with them, remember those 3 goals. How can I maximize my happiness? How can I maximize my bond with them? How can I maximize their happiness? And the best behaviors would be those which can contribute to all 3. So choose wisely. Good luck. A very important factor in mental peace is that instead of just thinking and thinking internally, you should be able to talk about your frustrations to someone. But sometimes your friends and family can get tired of listening or might not even understand you well. That's why you should talk to a therapist. Your emotions need regular air ventilation. Your thoughts need regular garbage disposal, like once every week with a trained therapist. At Shridhar Life School, we have a team of therapists that you can talk to. Please go to shridharlifeschool.com to book your sessions.